Welcome to the Health by Haven podcast. I'm your host, Haven Quinlan. If you're a multi-passionate wellness enthusiast, then you're in the right place. I'm obsessed with learning as much as I can about the wellness world, and I want to share that with you. Each episode will dive into various aspects of health and wellness through inspiring and informative guest interviews with some solo episodes thrown in. Tune in for all things health, and let's have some fun, shall we? Welcome back to the Health by Haven podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Sydney Carmus Weiner of French Squirrel. For as long as she can remember, Sydney has always been passionate about food and cooking. In an attempt to rediscover her love for food after falling trapped to the often obsessive health food world, she began her food blog. Inspired by her late French grandmother and her time living in Bordeaux, she began sharing her meals, recipes, and favorite restaurants. What started out as just a food Instagram turned into a healthier sweet snacks company, French Squirrel Co. Sydney is a certified hormone specialist specializing in blood sugar management and female health through a nutrition perspective. After experiencing hormone imbalances, she discovered a natural and holistic approach to heal her hormones through diet, exercise, and powerful adaptogens and herbs. I am so thrilled to get to chat with you today, Sydney. Thank you so much for coming on the Health by Haven podcast.
Thank you, Haven. It's so nice to meet you in live on video. I know we've been communicating for the last couple of weeks, so thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been doing my prep. I know you have a podcast, and I actually first heard of you and French Squirrel on the More Than a Cookie podcast because I'm just really obsessed with all the health and fitness world, and I love learning about all these small brands and the healthier brands. But for people who maybe haven't heard those episodes, can you fill in the gaps from the intro? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you first started getting interested in the world of health and maybe healthier foods.
Yes, of course. And so More Than a Cookie is done by my friend Emma from Stellar Eats, which is a gluten-free baking mix company. And it's really cool that all of us are connected in the food space and we have so much in common. So I'm so glad you found us through Emma's podcast. Anyway, and I'm a big fan of their brand, Stellar Eats. And she was on our podcast, Behind the Barcode, which we also do for the CPG industry. And so your question was just an intro on me.
Yeah. Give us some background on Sydney.
Sure. So, where do I begin? Okay. I have always been into food. I think that one of my number one questions is how did you get into the food space? And I know this is super cliche, and I even when I say it myself, I cringe at myself, but the food business found me, it chose me. I know that's weird to say, and it's always oversaid, and everyone says that this life chose me, but it really did. And I say that because I didn't just say, oh, one day I'm going to start a food company. I have always been someone who's passionate about cooking and food. So it's not like I said, here's my business plan. Here's how I'm going to start a CPG company. It all happened by accident. And I think that's where I differ from a lot of the entrepreneurs in the space is that I am more so operating from my love and joy of food. And it's not to say that they don't, but it's just that in terms of yes, I'm into business and I think it's awesome and the brand and stuff like that. But really, when you peel the layers of the onion, it started from when I was a little girl making rainbow cupcakes and there was this whole Instagram page, Illy Foodgram, where it was this big deal if you got on this Instagram page. I would post photos of my food, of boba that I went out with friends and take these aesthetic pictures. And I don't even know who was running this account, but if you made it on this account, it was a big deal. And so I grew up with my French grandmother, my late French grandmother, Sarah, who the brand is named after, French Squirrel. She would cook and I would watch her cook, and it was so beautiful. it was all real whole ingredients,
Mm.
minimal oils, minimal spices, minimal flavors, just very, very simple. If you know French food, a lot of the times people think that it's bland. And it is bland, but it's just like it's a return to how we should be eating, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, and I watched her and she taught me so many recipes, and I drew a lot of inspiration from her. And so I grew up baking and cooking, and while everyone went to normal summer camp, like sleepaway camp, my parents sent me to cooking camp, and I loved it. Like it was my favorite thing ever, ever, ever. Every summer I would go for maybe like 4 or 5 years, and we would learn how to, julienne carrots and dice onions, and just very, like refining these techniques, which as a kid it was pretty, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
honestly.
and I loved it. And so, long story short, I was always part of like a healthy home in terms of healthy food choices. And my mom followed in my grandma's footsteps. And then when I went to college, I think that's where a lot of things shifted. And that's where, I've connected with a lot of my female community and female customers, in the sense that a lot of women go through periods of disordered eating, which happens
Hmm.
in college typically, or high school, or whenever there's like that comparison trap where you start to get a sense of your own body and what society promotes that you should look like as a woman.
Hmm.
And that perpetuates a lot of eating disorders and exercise disorders and body dysmorphia and all those things. And we can dive deeper into that. But
Hmm.
that's what really fueled my Instagram, which was called French Squirrel. I named it French Squirrel because I had this website domain name, which is a long story, but I had this website domain name since I was 11 years old. And even though I had a healthy relationship with food, all of that spiraled and then it became unhealthy. I started off thinking I wanted to be healthier and make more healthy choices because college, all these processed food stuff like that.
Hmm.
And that's what led me to share recipes on my Instagram, how I was, rediscovering my love for food. And then the rest is history with this French Squirrel brand, which I can get into the business stuff after. But that's really how the brand started, was actually on accident, and how I was healing my relationship with food. That's how it started, as an Instagram account. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us because I think you're right. Like, so many people struggle, men and women, but
Mhm.
primarily women. So many people struggle with that, and it's so taboo to talk about, and you feel like you're in it alone. And I think, at least my health class when I was a kid growing up, the only eating disorders that were ever spoken about were like anorexia or bulimia. And if you didn't fit in these like very cookie cutter things, then it was like, oh, you're like totally fine. But there's so many nuances and gray areas. And I think like the almost over obsessing about like the healthy food and like I have to eat super clean and this and that and not those other things is not as talked about and not as like black and white. So people can't really like put a name to it. But if you don't mind going into that a little bit more of like, when you realize, oh, like I'm actually like struggling with this, and how you kind of started to heal that relationship with food and reintroduce those foods that you loved again.
Yes, yes. Thank you. And I appreciate you acknowledging that. I think a lot of people miss that. What you just said is that if you don't fit into either box, it's like, oh, you're fine. When actually that was exactly what happened to me. That was my experience. And I'm sure you're familiar with orthorexia, which is the
Mm-hmm.
obsession with eating clean and eating healthy. That's what I struggled with. So
Mm-hmm.
it was this thing where I needed to check the ingredients of everything. And if it didn't fit in that obsessive nature, then I couldn't eat it. Like it had to
Mm-hmm.
be this certain ingredients, it had to be this grams of sugar. Like it was crazy. And in hindsight, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was reading stuff on social media online. Like I didn't know anything. I was taking information from people who weren't even, licensed to be giving that information. Anyway, that's another topic. But I realized really that it was a problem when I became super isolated.
Mm,
Um, and I know that's a lot, but and it goes deep with like a lot of emotion. But I was realizing that I was feeling pretty alone in my thoughts. And I don't talk
yeah.
about this often. I think this is why podcasts are beautiful because it allows you to actually speak. Like I can't doing a 10-second reel on Instagram about my experience with disordered eating, it doesn't do it justice. Like this
Yeah.
is really the conversation that needs to be had, like lengthy conversation. So I appreciate you giving the space for that. Um, I was so in my own thoughts that it was beyond. Like my social circle changed. I was losing friends because I wouldn't go out to eat with them. I would like need to eat before. I stopped, in college, I wouldn't drink alcohol because I was afraid of gaining weight. And then I wouldn't go out. And so everything changed. And and I that was, I think, number one was that in a bad way, I was isolated in my own thoughts and I couldn't get out of this loop.
Yeah.
And it was, I felt very alone in it, as you just said.
Hmm.
Really, where I had my wake up call, though, was when I went to the doctor because I wasn't getting my period for 3 years.
Oh,
It had been
wow.
3 years already. And of course, I'm skipping a lot like in those 3 years, but I didn't have my period. And some doctors would say, oh, it's normal, it's normal, it's normal, until it's like, okay, wait, this is not normal.
Yeah.
And women need a certain amount of fat on their bodies to be able to produce a period and be fertile.
Hmm.
And it's so crazy because, again, like what works for someone may not work for someone else. And maybe someone is naturally thinner, is totally healthy, and can get their period monthly. But then for me, that didn't look the same. I needed a little bit more fat on my body. So basically, I had to go on this whole weight gain journey. Okay.
Hmm.
Which was very scary to go on when
Yeah.
I was previously trying to do the opposite and make
Right.
myself smaller. And I think this is the shift that I always talk about because I chat with a lot of girls on Instagram and on TikTok and women in my community that want to get their periods back. And it's only one answer. And this is my answer. The Your health has to go above your aesthetic appearance. Until that's switched, where your health matters more than what you look like, nothing is going to change. And so that's my only answer because so many girls are like, how did you do it? How were you okay with gaining weight? Like, what did you eat? What did you do? How did you exercise? All these things don't matter. It's until you say, you put your hands up and you say, I don't care what I look like as long as I'm healthy and I get my period back, that's all that matters. Until that switch is made, it's not going to happen. And it's a hard pill for so many women to swallow. And that was the journey that I went on. I put my hands up. I went to my naturopath, my acupuncturist, after being pushed for birth control, which I didn't want to take birth control. I was like, I want to heal this naturally. Why am I not getting my period? I don't want to take a medication that's a band aid.
Hmm.
I went on a 3 month journey to get my period back. And I said, tell me what to do. I'll do anything. So I ate more, exercised less, which is literally the exact opposite of what I
Yeah.
was previously doing, which was exercising more and eating less.
Hmm.
And I said, I'm ready. I said, my health is more important than anything else. And that's when everything changed.
Wow. Well, that's incredible advice. And like, hopefully, to hear that from an outside party, you're helping people who are listening. I mean, I truly believe that because, like, framing it that way is really like a wake up call. It's like, oh, there
Totally.
should be nothing more important than your
No.
health in the long term. Wow.
Yeah, especially for having kids and your
Yeah.
bone density. Like I've read up on this a lot, and like the longer you go without your period, it's even more harmful. It's like a snowball effect. It keeps
Mm,
snowballing. It's horrible for your bone density and horrible for your fertility. I mean, my doctor told me, if you don't fix this, you're gonna have trouble having kids. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
yeah. Big deal.
So, mm.
Oh gosh. And the fact that you went and tried to heal it naturally versus the Band-Aid fix. And I mean,
Yeah.
people who are regular listeners are probably so sick of me going down this rabbit hole, but of like getting to the root cause
Mhm.
instead of treating symptoms, I feel like so strongly about as well. And so anyways, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole, but like kudos to you for really trying to like figure out what was going on and heal it
Thank you.
naturally. Okay, I know we briefly touched on this in your intro, but I'd love to learn more about when you decided to become a certified hormone specialist and what that entailed.
Yes. So really my reasoning for getting this certification is that I was so passionate about learning about my hormones, especially when it came to healing my hormones to get my period back. So I went down this whole rabbit hole of like learning because I said where I was healing it naturally, like what is happening and why can't I get my period? What has to happen for you to get your period? Talking about estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. And I suffered from PCOS,
Mm.
polycystic ovarian syndrome, which if anyone is familiar, it can be from a multitude of reasons that you get it. Most of the reason is that it's a blanket statement, unfortunately, for stress for women. And I phrase that weird. What I mean to say is that sometimes it's a blanket diagnosis for
Hmm.
a lot of other underlying things, but it has to do with stress at the end of the day. And it could be either too much estrogen or too much testosterone. And I personally suffered from too much testosterone, too much masculine energy because I was stressing myself out from all these crazy intense workouts and not
Hmm.
having enough food to fuel them. And I was like, okay, I'm learning how to heal my body. So I started to learn more about hormones. And while I was working for Erewhon, actually, if you're familiar with Erewhon, it's a grocery store, the most amazing health food mecca in this country. Okay, in
I have
California.
been dying to go into one. Just side note, I feel like, I love Whole Foods and I just feel like it's probably like Whole Foods times 10. But anyways.
No, it is. It is. And I worked, it was my first job out of college. And I was working in their corporate offices, and I would bring these protein bites to work as my blood sugar balancing snack because again, part of healing your period is also healing your blood sugar, which is something else that I studied. And this kind of goes into the business also for a second. So sorry,
Yeah.
all like, but how I started the company was an accident. I used to bring these snacks that I would eat around 3, 4 o'clock that were hormone friendly, made with great healthy fats, low sugar, and it helped me with that afternoon slump, that afternoon
Hmm.
dip. And I would eat them around 3, 4 o'clock. It was my own recipe. And my boss said to me, he's the VP of Erewhon, my mentor. His name's Vito Antochi. Love him. And he said to me, why are you always eating the same snacks every single day? What are those? And I was like, oh, they're just like my little protein bites, you know? And this was at the time that I didn't even have my period at this point. I was still getting it back. And this was part of it, was
Mm.
incorporating these snacks. He's like, can I have some? I said, sure. Because there were these chocolate peanut butter protein bites. He goes, you would be stupid if you didn't package these. They're amazing.
What a compliment, especially from the position he was in.
Yes. And I thought he was crazy, but I actually listened to what he was saying. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start this and start making these and package them. And again, I only was posting them on my Instagram account, French Squirrel. And at this time, I'm talking about the benefits of certain foods. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I want to be reputable. I want to have knowledge in the space and be able to have credibility when I'm talking about why these are blood sugar balancing and why these are hormone friendly, instead of just saying it from like, oh, these influencers who are just talking about stuff. So I
Hmm.
went through a coaching institute called the Nutrition Coaching Institute and NCI. And I got a hormone specialist certification because I didn't want to be a nutritionist. That was too too broad. I wanted to niche down on specifically hormones. And so I did a hormone specialist coaching program through the Nutrition Institute, meaning I'm not a certified nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, but I am a certified hormone specialist. And I wanted to be able to have credibility when speaking on how our hormones are affected by certain foods. So that's a story.
I love it. And I mean, it took so many years for me to learn that food's interconnected to way more than we think about, and how it even affects your hormones is just wild. So I bet that was so fascinating to learn
Yep.
about.
Yes, it was. It was amazing. Great course too. And I recommend it for anyone.
From working at Air One, then your boss tells you like these are amazing. You need to package them. And then to the inception of French Squirrel, like talk us through that. And literally like all I can think of asking you is like how? Like it seems so overwhelming. So tell us everything.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, people see only one side on social media, which is all the glamour. And
Mm.
I really try to show the realness. And I think that's why I've gained the loyal following that I have. It's not to say that I have millions of followers, but I have really amazing loyal ones. It's incredible. Anytime I launch a product, people are loyal and they buy it because I'm talking about the struggles, and I'm
Mm.
talking about this is what it actually looks like, not this is what I want you to see. And I talk about my personal struggles as a founder. I talk about losing my period, and I talk about gut health, and I talk about being stressed out, and all these things, because it's all real emotions, and it
Mm.
allows people to connect with me and connect to the brand because it's a real person behind the brand.
Yeah.
um, but how I started it was that of course, I'm gonna, have to skip over all the business things. But in order to even start a business, I had to go through all the legal documents and the
Mm.
tax ID and setting it up as a California corporation. And then once all that was set up, I started making these protein bites in a commercial kitchen, and I would package them, and they were in these little like cellophane bags, and it's crazy how they look so different now. And I did a couple recipe iterations, and I launched them at Erewhon, and I posted it on my Instagram, and I made 3 flavors, and it sold out literally every week to the point where I couldn't keep my full-time job at Erewhon and then also produce these. And there
Wow.
came a point where it's like, okay. And I remember I've had conversations with my dad about this. It's like, do you want to be the CEO or do you want to be the person making it? And the answer is no, I want to be the CEO of this company. And so I have to find people to make it. And so then I
Hmm.
eventually found manufacturers after a long process to be able to make it for me. And this is a message to anyone listening who wants to start their own food product. You have to be very, very persistent and convincing and confident, because there are manufacturers that are going to tell you it's not possible to make that shape. You don't know what you're talking about. It's not possible to use this ingredient. You need to add this emulsifier. You need to add this sugar. You need to add this natural flavor. And if you're not firm and strong in your beliefs, they will mold you into what they do with all these big food brands,
Mm.
just to make them as highly processed and as cheap as possible. And so, if you're looking to start a healthy snack company, you have to have that backbone to be able to say, no, I don't think so. And so, that process took a really long time to find that manufacturer and manufacturers, plural, who were who believe in me and believe in what I'm doing. And then as the years went on, I just kept launching more products. And, a lot of these products, people will say, oh, well, I can make that at home. Like the
Hmm.
dates that we have, we make stuffed dates. I'm a jewel date stuffed with peanut butter coated in chocolate. It's my favorite snack. It's my favorite dessert, my favorite pre workout. And I said, why has no one packaged these? And we launched these in 2021, I want to say.
Hmm.
And before they, like, when they were starting to become a thing and people were posting them, and I didn't care that people were making them at home. I said the point of French Squirrel is healthy convenience. Like
Right.
that you stop at this, you're in the middle of walking and you want to stop at a grocery store and you need a healthy snack. That's what it is. And so then I just kept launching more products that meant a lot to me. We launched a healthy Muddy Buddies or puppy chow, if you're familiar with that snack.
Yeah.
It was my dream product to launch a healthy Muddy Buddies. And so instead of powdered sugar, we use date sugar, chocolate, peanut butter, cereal clusters. They're delicious. Then also, my favorite thing ever is peanut butter. I'm a peanut butter snob. I think I've tried every peanut butter on the market. And I said, why is there no peanut butter that I'm loyal to? Like,
Mm.
there's no brand where I'm consistently buying it every single month or bi-weekly, whatever it is. I go through peanut butter like pretty much every 2 weeks or something like that. But I said, I'm going to make this even more epic. We're going to add medjool date pieces and cinnamon to the peanut butter because those are my favorite flavor combinations. And so, that's everything has been, my creativity. And if people say, oh my God, are those your recipes? Yes. Like this is just, the brand is just an extension of me. So it's my favorite recipes, my favorite flavor combos. And yeah, that's the story.
Okay, I love that part of your role is very like business minded and analytical and like structures and systems. And then the other
Mm.
part, you get to be like creative and recipe development and product launching and things like that. What is like your favorite side, or do you love the switch
Mhm.
back and forth?
No, I love these questions. Thank you. They're very
Yeah.
intentional and they actually like hit a spot that I think about often. Like this is a very like heavy like there's a lot in this topic because it's the balance of masculine, feminine and yin and yang.
Mm.
And I still struggle with this. Like this isn't something that I've completely figured out to find that balance. Which do I enjoy more? 100% the creative part. There's no minute, second of doubt with that. And that's really the problem is that I started this company with this creativity, with this passion. And then eventually you end up doing Excel spreadsheets and
Yeah.
profit and loss statements. And you're like, wait, I didn't sign up for this. I don't like this.
Hmm.
And it's a necessary evil because like you have to do it to be able to be in business. And yeah, you can hire people, but as a small business we can't afford to hire the top CFO to like do these things. So then I become the CFO and the CEO and the COO and the CMO, and I'm like doing social media, I'm doing the marketing, and now we have financial advisors and bookkeepers, accountants, and everything's good, but like it's very difficult. I will say, I'll leave it at this. It's very difficult to switch that persona in your brain. Like the days are so complex because you have to be able to structure it to interchange. Like it's taken me years to figure out, okay, these are the hours where I'm more analytical and focused, and these are the hours that I can be more playful and
Mm.
start like recording and be more creative. And I know this is very niche and random and specific, but I noticed like it's been 4.5 years in business. I noticed that after lunch, when I've eaten food and I've had fuel, the hour after lunch, I'm super creative and I like need to open TikTok and I need to open Instagram and like I'm thinking of things to post for marketing. Whereas like the it's actually like towards honestly, I know towards the end of the day, even though I wish it was the beginning of the day, but towards the end of the day, it's more like around 4 or 5 p.m. where I get super locked into the Excel spreadsheet. Like phone is on do not disturb. I'm really focused on the numbers, but switching between those, the creative and the numbers is very difficult. And I still have a problem with it. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're wearing a million hats, it sounds
Yeah.
like. So I think anyone would struggle with that. But I think it's so helpful that you just shared, like, that you're still learning the times of days that are best for you
Mhm.
for things because, a lot of people listening to this are probably working a corporate 9 to 5. They're probably not a small business owner. Maybe they are. They're probably not a CPG brand owner. Maybe they are. But like, even if you don't have complete autonomy over your day and you're working in a corporation, maybe you can look at your day and kind of try to batch work that like works best for you as well.
And it may not look like what people would think it looks like. Exactly. And, in the morning, yeah, I have my coffee and you would think, oh, the morning caffeine would be in the clear mind would be the greatest time to go through Excel spreadsheets. I have resistance to it in the morning. I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. Like I need to do it more towards like 4 or 5 o'clock. When I tried doing it around like 9, 10 a.m., the Excel spreadsheets and like the crunching of numbers. And
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not in the headspace for that. That time for me is more um get back to people first, email people, like communicate, like you just had your coffee, like tell everyone you're online. And
Yeah.
kind of the time that I use. And some people would say that in the morning you should be doing Excel spreadsheets because that's when your brain is most awake. Well, nah, not for me. For me,
Yeah.
4 5 o'clock is when I work best for Excel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am not working in the same job as you, but I can relate to like, I have a bit more like creative and social energy in the morning because I am a morning person and I want to like, I don't know, get that energy out instead of feeling like bogged down by like technical work in the morning. So I can relate to that. I'm sure other people listening can as well. Do you ever get the luxury, I guess, of batch working like, okay, this whole day I'm going to work on filming for social media, or this whole day I'm going to work on reaching out to new accounts? Or are you having to kind of switch hats day, like each couple hours of the day?
Hmm. Good question. I have the luxury to be able to do so because at the end of the day, it's like, even though I have amazing help, like it is just me. So if I don't get back to someone, I don't get back to someone.
Mm,
Just me. Um, However, I have a responsibility to my team and my partners to get back to them. Um, as in my manufacturing partners and stuff like
mm-hmm.
that. But typically it's that switch. It's a rarity to say the whole day is going to be focused on this,
Mm-hmm.
but I do have the luxury for it. And that's usually like, when we do photo shoots, that is the whole day. That's the whole
Mm,
day. But typically it is the switch. But
yeah.
it's the option to have the full day to do something is where the freedom is of owning your own business. So yeah.
That's true. That's nice. So I love that you are so passionate about the products that you're putting into your, or the ingredients that you're putting into your products, and that you want quality and that you're not willing to compromise on your values, as you mentioned before, and finding the right manufacturer and everything. So maybe for someone listening who is in this industry or is interested in just learning more about it, like how did you go about sourcing those products, about finding the right manufacturer, all the connections? Tell people like where to get started, basically.
Yeah. So when I started, I knew absolutely nothing. I was buying product at like retail price.
Mm,
I didn't know anything. I was just saying, okay, what are my favorite brands? What are the brands that Sydney likes? I wasn't like
mm,
looking up wholesale oat flour. I was like, what oat flour do I like? Or
yeah.
I wasn't looking up bulk pea protein. I was just buying that pea protein and saying, I like this pea protein. So that's where I started. And then I found out, oh, okay, now I can set up wholesale accounts with these companies. These companies are going to provide me a price break if I order X amount of pounds of oat flour, X amount of pounds of pea protein. And so I started to learn that way. And then I would say, okay, cool. Then I started to see, run numbers, talk to different people in the space. And then people started to reach out to French Squirrel and say, hey, French Squirrel, we notice, you have to start somewhere. We
Hmm.
notice that you use organic yellow pea protein. We're yellow pea protein suppliers. We'd like to work with you. Here's our pricing. And
Mm,
then you say, oh, actually, we're getting pea protein for around this price. It's not the pricing that you're offering is not competitive enough for us to switch over. And if it is, let's say I am interested in working with them, I request COAs, so certificate of analysis, and samples. So testing for mold, testing for lead, testing for toxins, testing for salmonella, like all these things so that you can see exactly what you're getting and a spec sheet to see if there are any additives, how it's made, when it was made, all those things. And honestly, tasting. Like, again, the French squirrel is an extension of me. And people say to me, oh my God, your dates are the juiciest, like plumpest, moist dates. How do you get that? And I'm like, first of all, we're paying a premium. They're organic, they're jumbo. That's the most, and they're like medjool dates are the queens of dates. Like it's known as the queen of dates.
Mm-hmm.
It's expensive. So when people
Mm-hmm.
say, "Oh my God, your products are pricey," I'm like, "Yes, they are pricey because they're high quality, and the process of me going through it too. And I taste everything, and I don't approve anything unless Sydney has tasted it. And I really, learned that also from the owner of Erewhon. She tastes every single thing that goes into her store. It's
Wow.
incredible.
Wow.
And so that's what it is. And so that the price is because of the quality and because I'm tasting everything. And that's pretty much how you go about finding suppliers. It's kind of a dance of both you doing outreach and then brands will reach out to you as well. Suppliers will reach out once you start scaling your business and then they find you. And then it's a merge of both.
Okay, I'm so glad you said all of that about the price point and about all the vetting that you're doing. I think that's so helpful for people to know, like when they're going into a health food store or, I mean, a regular grocery store, but and they're seeing some of these products and they're like, oh, well, why would I pay double for that one? I can get this thing for half the price. And absolutely, like people have budgets, and I totally understand, like, you have to be price conscious about things, but I think it's also prioritizing. I don't know. I've never had problems spending more money on something that I'm ingesting if I know that it's better quality, it tastes better, it's better for my health, because in my mind, it's an investment in my future. I'm paying hopefully
Yes.
less medical bills down the road if I'm fueling myself with whole foods that are tested for mold, that are tested for lead, things like that, that people don't think about versus like super highly processed packaged foods that they're making like as cheaply as possible.
No, totally. And I think that here's the gap is that we don't want to be charging that price. Like we have to charge that price in order to stay in business.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we get backlash about pricing, in order to get healthy snack brands to be more affordable, you have to support the small businesses that have healthier ingredients because an insight into the food industry is that the price goes down when volume goes up. And so we can't get to that volume until we have sales. So we need customer support in order to bring it down. Like, I don't want to be charging 14.99 for a jar of organic peanut butter. I want to bring it down, but we can't because we can't stay in business unless it's at that price, if that makes sense. And then
Absolutely.
once we get more sales and build brand presence and get more distribution, we can bring that down because the ultimate goal of French Squirrel is to, bring healthy snacks to this country. So yes, we want to make it more affordable.
Yeah, I think that's such a good note as well. And I think that's why, like, your marketing on social media, where you're like sharing yourself and your life as well, so that, like you said, people are connecting to you and they want to support you as a brand, is just probably like so helpful for your company as a whole. Okay, so the protein bites were the first product. How did you go on to launch other products after that?
So the next one was our dates, our bateau, which means boats in French because they look like little, date boats. And they're the medjool date stuff with peanut butter and almond butter coated in dark chocolate. And then we have two SKUs, two flavors, peanut butter and almond butter. Peanut butter is my personal favorite because I'm a Snickers Reese's fan and it mimics that flavor profile. And then after we did the Muddy Buddies, as I mentioned, the puppy chow,
Mm-hmm.
which is of the traditional processed American snack doused in powdered sugar, which I used to make this snack all the time as a kid. My parents would yell at me because it was so much sugar and so unhealthy. And I would hide Ziploc bags in my freezer. And it was my dream product to make these healthy cereal clusters. And we actually just launched a new flavor of the cereal clusters called French toast. And it's a
Oh,
cinnamon white chocolate peanut butter Muddy Buddies.
oh my gosh, cinnamon is my favorite. I'm gonna have
They
to
are
try those.
incredible. I'll send you some. They're
Oh,
incredible. It's a healthier spin on cinnamon toast crunch, and it's unreal.
yes.
And we make our own vegan white chocolate. And I'm not even a white chocolate fan, but this vegan white chocolate is incredible.
Oh,
And then we also have the date peanut butter in a jar, which we just did an Erewhon collaboration with. We did a peanut butter latte with Erewhon, where we brewed espresso on top of the peanut butter, added oat milk, Willa's oat milk, and then frothed that with some maple syrup. And it was delicious. Like it was amazing, and we did that collaboration for December. It was last month. So that was the product we featured. And yeah, that we have a total of 4 product lines. So the berets, the bateau, bisou, and beurre. Everything has a French name because beurre means butter. So it's like peanut butter.
uh-huh.
Bisou means kisses because they look like little kisses, the cereal.
Yeah.
And then bateau is boat, and beret is like the French hat. So yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so how do you decide, like, when it's mostly you on this company and there's like only so many hours in the day, how do you decide, okay, this is a time I want to do a new product launch versus this is a time I want to work on getting my product into new places versus this is a time I want to focus on selling from my website? I mean, it just seems like there's so many things like trying to take your time all at once.
Yes, yes. And I'm going to shout out my business coach, Lauren, because when I first started working with Lauren, she said, "Are you a retailer or are you an e-com company? Which are you? D2C or B2B? Which are you?" And I said both. And she goes, "Wrong answer. You can't be both." And I started working with Lauren many years ago, and I was like, how could I not be both?
Hmm.
As you said, you can't spread, you have to focus on one area. And she goes, okay, gut answer, what are you? Gut answer is French Squirrel is a product that is in retail stores.
Mm.
And that's the split of our business is about 70/30, 70 retail, 30 ecom. We have an ecom store. We've been building Amazon, which has been great for us. But primarily where French Squirrel's main efforts go are into being in stores. And that's how customers find us. And then they can go online and buy product. And, for anyone listening that wants to start a food business, I'd recommend doing it the other way first.
Really?
Uh-huh. Because the e-com space is way more profitable than the retail space. However, we started off at retail and French Squirrel is a more retail brand anyway. But if you're thinking of cash flow and profitability, e-com is always the way to go because you don't have the middleman. And the middleman at retail is a distributor, which is a third party delivery service where we do not ship to Erewhon. We do not ship to Happier Grocery. We do not ship to Foxtrot. There is a distributor in the middle who delivers the product and they take a cut of the
Okay.
product. And that's what the retail space looks like. How do we decide when to launch a product? It's honestly depending on my own craziness in my head. I wish it were more organized. But if you are a retail company, there are product launch times. There are
Mm.
things called category reviews, meaning that certain retailers will not just bring in a product at any time of the year. It'll be in a certain window, a certain quarter, like, September to October, whenever it is, where they review peanut butter. And
Okay.
if you don't submit your peanut butter in that review, you literally have to wait a whole nother year if you missed it.
Wow.
And nobody talks about this.
Yeah. I mean, I would have never known.
That's why it's so slow. That's why your people message and say, how come you guys aren't in Whole Foods? How come you're not in Wegmans? How come you're not in Sprouts? We're working on it, but it's very slow. And if that means that if we don't make the review, we have to wait another year.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's why it takes companies a lot of time to get into these stores. And yeah, and when it comes to launching products, typically it's not the best time to do it in the winter.
Mm.
That's when people are doing holiday seasonal flavors.
Yeah.
But for some reason, of course, French Squirrel's ideas come when it's ready to launch in the winter. So the last couple of launches have been around the winter time. Like we launched our peanut butter in November of 2023, which is not an ideal time to launch. That's just when it happened. Like
Uh-huh.
I can't plan when my creativity calls. And this year we launched last year 2024 we launched our French toast cereal in September, which was an improvement. I said, okay, let's not do November, it's too late, we need to do this sooner, we need to get on it, and we
Yeah.
launched just in time for back to school. So
Yeah. Oh, I bet great lunchbox snacks for kids. I mean,
yeah,
come
but
on.
it's trial and error. It's like I know that November is not a great time to launch a product because of seasonal, like stuff like that, but that's the thing. When you're a founder and you're a creative, it doesn't, I can't plan it. It just happens the way it happens.
Right. I was gonna say you probably do have those like spurts of creativity where you're like, oh, this is like the thing I want to do next. And I mean, I feel like you do kind of have to roll with that because that's like
Yeah.
what your gut is telling you as well.
And also their packaging delays, printing, graphic
Yeah.
designer. It takes a good couple of months, takes a good 6 months to launch a product.
Okay, so tell us a couple of the retailers that French Squirrel is currently in right now, because I know, like, just talking about this, I'm like, I gotta get my hands on it. But people listening, I'm sure they're thinking the same thing. And my usual go-to for foods like this is Whole Foods. So tell us where we could find you right now. I guess in addition to your website too.
Yes. And yeah, we're on Amazon, we're on TikTok Shop, we're on our storefront, frenchsquirrel.com. But if you would like to get us at retail stores, we're available. So for California, we're in Erewhon, we're in Jimbo's, we're in Berkeley Bowl, we're in Mother's, Lazy Acres, Bristol Farms, and even smaller shops like in LA, like Layla Bagels and Farm Shop. We're in a mix of both. Then, if we're talking about New York, we are in Bonberry, the Good Smart, Happier Grocery, Matcha Full, which is a great account for us,
Yes.
Pop Up Grocer on Bleecker Street here in Manhattan. And then, in middle of the country, we're in Foxtrot, which a bunch of locations. And one of our best accounts is the Fresh Market, which has
Oh.
90 plus locations. Georgia, Alabama, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, all of those, you can find us at the Fresh Market. So that's a great account for us. And we're also in Sun Life Organics, the smoothie bar. I believe it's also in Nashville.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I've
yeah,
not been.
yeah. So those are some of our great accounts. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Definitely need to go and snag some of those products if you're listening. But I know I literally could talk to you about this all day long. I have no plans to start a food company, but I just find it so fascinating. So if anybody is with me on that, like go listen to Sydney's podcast as well. I feel like it's so interesting to learn kind of the behind the scenes of all these companies. I do want to switch gears just for a moment before I have to let you go to talk a little bit about some of the personal health things that you've been sharing on Instagram lately, because I think it has the potential to help so many people as well. So, talk to us a little bit about, I know you've shared recently that you found out that you had a candida overgrowth. Is that, I guess, technically? And tell people listening, probably people don't know what that is, what it entails, how do you figure it out, what have you done to help support it and like feel better?
Yes. And I'm happy to chat about this because it's been very top of mind, and that's where a lot of my social media content has gone recently. And it's really crazy how my health journey has looked so different. Like it started off really with disordered eating, And then it was my rediscovery of food. And I kind of just ate everything and anything because I had to heal my relationship
Mm-hmm.
with food, which means limiting any type of restrictions, like letting go of all restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
And then you arrive at this place that I'm at now, which is actually the healthiest relationship that I've had with food ever, is right now.
It's amazing.
And it took years to get there. And so to make a long story short, because it's a long story, and a lot of my journeys on TikTok, for anyone that wants to follow me, Sydney double underscore KW. That's where I share a lot of the details. But essentially, in January of last year, so a year from today, honestly, because we're recording January 2025, last year I started to have a lot of weird symptoms come up where, and I'm very intuitive, I'm very in tune with my body because of all the holistic healing that I had done previously. And I noticed that I had a lot of eye twitching and eye pressure. And went to my optometrist and I said, look, like this is a little bit weird for me. I don't know what's going on. My eye keeps twitching. He goes, oh, man, probably just dry eyes. I was like, okay. So he gave me drops and then sent me away. Then I go back a couple weeks later because I said, this is not helping me. It's still, I couldn't even look at the computer. It was giving me a headache to look at the computer, and it was kind of like sinus pressure. And he
Mm.
said, this is weird. I don't know what this is. Like maybe you're stressed.
Mm.
And I was like, aren't we all? I actually
Yeah.
hate when people say that, when doctors say that.
Yes.
And yes, I'm stressed, but I knew the eye pressure and eye twitching wasn't from that. Like I knew it wasn't because I've always been stressed out.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm working on it. It's a work in progress with, managing anxiety and stuff like that. But I knew it wasn't from that. And then he sends me to the ENT to go check my sinuses. They don't know what's wrong with my sinuses. And so they say, we're going to get an MRI of your sinuses. So I remember in February, the next month, I remember everything like to the T. I
Mm.
go in to get an MRI and I remember crying because of like how isolated I felt. And also like
Yeah.
MRI is really scary and I don't like
Yeah.
it. And I was like, what's happening to me? It made me feel like it was my brain. I was freaking out. They tell me your sinuses are incredibly inflamed. We don't know what's why. We're going to send you to an allergist. Maybe you have allergies to something and you don't know. I go see the allergist. They prick my back with a million things.
Hmm.
And they tell me you're allergic to dust and pollen. And the recommendation was verbatim to keep the windows in my apartment closed.
Oh, geez.
And I was like, so I'm not supposed to go outside? Like, what? I don't know. And it didn't feel right. They gave me the serum that was like to microdose my own allergy. It was like a
Mm.
Western medicine doctor, like an actual serum that was formulated to like get my body to be used to this allergy.
Yeah.
And it all went downhill from there. I started to itch more than I've ever itched before. I was itching behind my scalp, behind my ears. I started to develop heat rashes. Like I was getting super hot and I couldn't control my body temperature. I started to have red rashes everywhere. My face got puffy and I was like, what is happening? And then
Hmm.
I go to the dermatologist because it started to show up on my skin.
Hmm.
Dermatologist says, here's a cream, here's an ointment, here's medication. Okay. I was so desperate. I couldn't sleep at night that I took this medication. Then I go back because when I stopped taking the medication, it came back.
Mm.
And no one asked me anything about my diet. No one asked me anything about sleep. No one asked me anything about exercise, nothing. I go back, they take a blood panel, like a blood test at the dermatologist,
Hmm.
and it comes back that I have Candida overgrowth, which is a gut imbalance.
Hmm.
And when you look it up, it can show you that it could be chronic UTIs, a yeast infection, essentially. I didn't have any of those. So that's the misconception that I need to debunk. And that like people think that if you have Candida overgrowth, you must have a yeast infection, you must have UTIs. I had
Hmm.
none of that. It was all itchy scalp stuff, like skin. It was all just showing up on my skin. And that's something that I always talk about on TikTok, is that you don't have to have all the symptoms. So I
Yeah.
find out finally after 6 months, this was in June, and I get a diagnosis, and then I went to a naturopath,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, I need to help. I need help with this. And it was like a deja vu moment back to when I was healing my period. Now I'm going the holistic route again. She puts me on this diet, or protocol rather. I hate the word
Mm-hmm.
diet. And it was a very slippery slope because I have a history of disordered eating. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I need to heal this thing though. I was miserable. She said, you have too much sugar in your system. You need to detox from sugar. That's what's happening. I didn't understand. She put me on this protocol. I was only allowed blueberries for 30 days. That was the only sugar that I was allowed.
Oh my
I
gosh.
I basically went on the keto diet,
Yeah.
animal based, eating steak, chicken, salmon, veggies, probiotic rich veggies, sauerkraut, all these fermented foods.
Mm-hmm.
And within 14 days, all those symptoms that I just listed went away. The eye twitching went away, the eye pressure, the sinus inflammation, the rashes, the itching, the brain fog, gone.
Wow.
And no one could help me with this. And I went to acupuncture and I did cupping, and I was so freaking dedicated to this thing. I was like, I'm going to heal my body. And I eventually start sharing recipes on TikTok because I was posting what I was doing. And
Mm-hmm.
people kept saying, what are the recipes? What are the recipes? Can you make a cookbook? Can you make a cookbook? And like my boss, how I thought he was crazy many years ago for
Mm-hmm.
starting this, I said, okay, I'll make a cookbook. So I literally made a cookbook. I have it here in print right
Yeah.
here. And I launched it on Amazon. And I took had my friend Gracie take product photos, and she's amazing. And I started sharing these recipes that helped heal my body. And I I couldn't have done this if I didn't heal my relationship with food before. And so I always say that because it can be triggering to some people to be on a
Mm-hmm.
protocol. But let me tell you, this is the healthiest I've ever been up
Wow.
here in my head and just in general. And that's the story. I had too much sugar in my body.
That's amazing. And like, once again, if anyone listening has ever gone through a struggle like that, where you're like, something is wrong and everyone's telling me nothing's wrong, but I know that something's wrong and I don't know what it is, like, it's so frustrating to get past
Incredibly.
among all of these different specialists. So I just like feel for you so much because I've been there before and it's so incredibly frustrating. And so I just love that you're sharing out. Like, it's a very like personal thing to share about your own like health struggles on
No, I
social
know.
media and everything. But
But
I
I
just,
want to help people, and it's already
right.
helped people. So
Yeah.
thank you for saying that. And you have to be an advocate for yourself. If I had just listened to the doctors and said, okay, I would still have these issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
And so, no, don't be sorry. I'm just so glad that you figured it out and that now you're trying to be a resource for other people. And whether someone's experiencing those same things and they have a similar problem that they're trying to tackle or it's something else, like I hope that anyone listening, like that you're like a little beacon of hope to them or like encouragement of like to keep trying and like that you can figure it out and like feel better on the other side of it as well.
Yes, you definitely can. And it takes a lot of discipline, but you can do it. Like I'm only now starting to reincorporate foods that I previously wouldn't have. But in the beginning, I was so disciplined. I didn't like eat out for 30 days because I was like, I need to know what I'm putting in my body to heal. And it
Yeah.
worked. Everything that every doctor said, it's this, it's that. You don't know what you're talking about. Nah, people thought I was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really, really discouraging to be like, no, I know something's wrong. Something's wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
then the cookbook is really just again an extension of everything that I did too. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, I'll link to that as well in the show notes if anyone's experiencing those similar symptoms and they want to give it a try. But just to be clear, like after those 30 days, have you then started kind of incorporating other things back into your diet?
So a lot of the Chinese medicine protocols are 90 days. Typically, you
Okay.
aim for like when I was healing my period, it took 3 months.
Yeah.
So did this. This was also
Okay.
3 months. It
Okay.
was but even longer, 6 months. Like I don't mean to say I was eating at home for 6 months straight. Of course, I was eating out, but I mean the trial and error where you will get flare-ups. Like
Mm.
I had flare-ups of Candida, meaning when I first started, 30 days I was eating at home, and then 60 days I started to eat out, started to add in dairy again. I started to add in certain foods. I started to try new fruits, add in some chocolate, and I had reactions. I literally had um I like kind of like you break out in hives. Like I had
Mm.
reactions, but you have to keep going because you have to get your body in a place to be able to handle it. And now I can have those foods without having a flare up. But in the beginning, of course, I did. Like it was so discouraging. I Raspberries are my favorite fruit, and I remember I tried raspberries after like 60 days, and it was like raspberries with chocolate chips, and I broke out in hives.
Oh gosh.
And then I said, okay, that's fine. Let me stick to this. I need to go. The means I need go a little longer. I need to
Yeah.
just to heal a little bit more. And then after a couple weeks after that, I tried it again, and I was good.
So
So
that's good too, is that if anyone's like feeling discouraged
yeah,
about like kind of the limited things, like starting to slowly reintroduce so that you
yeah,
can stay in like a healthy mindset as well.
mhm, yes,
Okay, I have a couple of fun final questions for you, and then maybe one day we'll get on again because I feel like the list goes on. But okay, shifting gears. What's your favorite workout?
ooh, hot yoga.
Nice. I cannot relate, but I am happy for you. I hate being hot, so
Oh, it's my favorite. It's just therapeutic for me.
yes. What's your favorite food?
Salmon.
Any new products, classes, wellnessy trends, things that you are into lately?
Ay, ay, ay. Uh, Bringing dairy back.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the wellness trend that I'm into, drinking real whole milk and not into these alternative milks with the gums anymore. I think it's
Yeah.
over, passe, and people are coming back to like real dairy, cooking in butter. I love cooking in raw butter, and that was essential in my candida healing too. That's like the number one thing that I used to cook was raw butter.
Is there a particular brand you liked?
I like raw farms. They're
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
And
it's
then,
cultured too.
yeah. What's your favorite French squirrel product? If
Oh,
you had to pick, I feel like I'm asking you to pick between your children.
no, I get asked this a lot.
Yeah.
And previously I would have said our stuff dates, and it still is, but the date peanut butter in a jar
Mm.
is so incredible. Our beurre, that's on Amazon as well and TikTok Shop. It's our number one product on TikTok Shop. It is amazing. I eat it every single day, actually. So that's my
Yeah.
favorite product.
Yeah. Okay. And then just a few rapid fire to finish us out. Morning or evening workout?
Evening. It used to be more it no, it used to be evening, and then now that I moved to New York temporarily, now it has to be morning because it gets dark here so soon. And then like with
Yeah.
East Coast hours with work, unfortunately, now it has to be morning, but I prefer evening. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. Juice or smoothie?
Smoothie,
Coffee or matcha?
coffee,
Salad or bowl?
bowl,
Pizza or pasta?
pasta,
That's the hardest one for me too. It's okay.
uh,
Tacos or quesadilla?
oh, tacos.
An early riser or night owl?
I hate to admit this, but night owl.
Don't hate to admit it. Everyone's clock's wired differently.
Yeah. Yeah, even though I still get up at a reasonable hour, but I don't know. A lot of my creativity comes at night too, oddly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Sydney, thank you so much for your time today. I so enjoyed chatting with you. I feel like I could talk to you all day long, but for people listening, where can they follow along your account, French Squirrel, get your product, all the good stuff?
Thank you. This was so nice. I post on Instagram and TikTok regularly on both accounts. So if you're looking for business, it's frenchsquirrel.co on both Instagram and TikTok. And then my personal account is Sydney underscore KW. And then on TikTok, it's just double underscore. And I'm on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me there. And our website is frenchsquirrel.com. And we have all our retailers on there as well.
Amazing. And we'll link all that in the show notes. So for everyone listening, scroll on down, give her a follow, order the product. And thank you, Sydney, so much.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Health by Haven podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review. It makes such a huge difference in reaching new people and spreading the joy of healthy living. I would also be so appreciative if you subscribe to the show in the listening app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Your support truly means the world to me. Have a happy, healthy day, and I'll talk to you again soon.